It's a universal problem which has been recognized and even quantified by reliable agencies like BIMCO and the International Shipping Federation. But it's one that's getting worse as the world fleet increases and the demographics work their irreversible way around the world fleet. And we fail to make the connections between the aspirations of our seafarers, who are essential workers in an industry which feeds and fuels the world, whose hopes and fears are really just like us, like ours. We fail to treat them with any generosity, and so many of them are maintained as casual labour. We whittle down crew levels well below that which is either safe or socially sustainable in our fixation with the cheapest, offering strong hints that if those we employ are too demanding, there is a crew from a cheaper source that will do the job at half the price. We tolerate shore authorities treating them badly over shore leave and fail to defend them sufficiently robustly against this present social enthusiasm for criminalisation of anybody who might make a mistake or be accused, on however flimsy the evidence, of pollution. We built ships in 2010 in which the accommodation and the amenities are arguably a good deal worse than those which were being delivered 40 years ago. And we still don't seem to understand that loyalty is a two-way business, especially in our relations with cadets, trainees and junior officers who need opportunities to progress their careers. I hope that the Year of the Seafarer will be a time when the whole industry can reflect on these matters, and it jolly well needs to change its ways, for the recession won't last forever, and the seafarer shortage will return with a vengeance that may well see ships tied up for want of a competent crew. The emphasis really ought to be on the word competent, because mere bodies won't be enough in an age of intolerance of any form of marine accident, with liabilities and indeed criminal prosecution being more lavishly spread beyond those who merely drive the ships. And the best sectors in this industry understand all of this perfectly and are doing what they can to invest in people, in training and education. Others, I'm afraid, just blunder on as usual, hoping that something is going to turn up. Members of this organisation, particularly those operating lighthouse tenders and overseeing maritime safety, attach enormous importance to the maintenance and furtherance of seafaring skills, and they understand this word competence better than most. I would suggest here, among your members, Mr. President, is to be found one of the last great refuges of real old-fashioned seamanship coexisting alongside enormous abilities with really advanced navigational technology. But I'm sure you also are very aware of the deficiencies to which you are witness in the wider world, evidenced by marine accidents, which have your vessels rushing out of port with great marking buoys and enormous bow-shaped dents which suddenly appear in your navigational marks, and others which accountably vanish during the night. And this, of course, reflects upon competence, and I suppose it's a very relevant question to ask whether the technology found aboard the average merchant ship might be getting a little bit ahead of the ability of seafaring mankind to use it. This might appear unfair, and I have to confess it reflects what I have been told, as one who has to, I'm afraid, must confess that I have to take all my IT advice for my grandchildren. It's not really part of my own experience, but I was told that technology is outstripping the capabilities of ship staff. That's a worrying quotation from a technical seminar I attended just last month, in which great concern was expressed about the difficulties of system design and integration, which was evidenced with some of the outfits of machinery and equipment aboard the latest generation of tonnage, ships which are now coming into service. The intentions to provide integrated solutions are admirable, but the inability to put this into practice, very often because of the fragmented links between the various stakeholders actually produce system weaknesses. We don't take sufficient skill, we don't take sufficient account of the skill set of the operator, said one of the presenters of this paper, which was actually at a Lloyd's Register seminar. And I think this really suggests that it is deficiencies in the human element component which is one of the major problems. I believe that the intervention of bodies like IALA, particularly at the time when new equipment is being developed, this can be so very helpful at injecting practical reality into eventual solutions. The problem is very often misunderstood by those who specify and purchase ships who are sold systems that are superficially attractive, and they promise savings in manpower or improvements in inefficiency that turn out to be conditional on the expertise and the training of the operator, which extra dimension is sadly ignored. Buy our integrated navigation system, they are told, and your mediocre navigators will become like Vasco da Gama. I'm afraid it doesn't often work out like that. In navigational terms, we had some years ago the illusion of the one-man bridge operation, which I still maintain was both dangerous and antisocial, and bless their hearts, was killed off by the US Coast Guard. But the cost cutters don't give up, and you can see the same sort of attitudes reflected in a worrying rise in the level of protests by ship owners, at least in my part of the world, that visual aids to navigation, such as lighthouses and buoys, are now redundant, and they shouldn't have to pay for them. I have to say, as diplomatically as I can, that there is a degree of hubris in such an attitude. I actually think it's nonsense on stilts, and there is plenty of evidence for this, in the shape of not infrequent casualties involving very lavishly equipped ships. You might remember the picture of a big container ship, to use the modern term, embedded in the white cliffs of a Mediterranean island, or the computer-controlled post-Panamax, which was sitting forlornly on the Barn Bank in the English Channel after the technology got a bit out of hand. I would suggest that the very fashionable e-navigation is brilliant, it's fine. E-navigation is tremendous, but it shouldn't entirely replace L-navigation. L for looking out of the window from time to time. We live in technologically advanced times, but we shouldn't forget first principles. And I note that IALA places great value on the assessment and management of risk, which you infer should be central to any technical advances. We shouldn't just blunder into the adoption of sophisticated equipment because it's there, without considering the consequences. The interval between the very first radar-assisted collision and the very first computer-aided grounding, it was actually very many years. But you might have thought we might have learned something by now. In your excellent conclusions from your Shanghai conference, Mr. President, you strongly endorsed the importance of training in aids to navigation, which you describe as an ongoing challenge. And I suspect that 2 years on, you would probably agree that the challenge is still ongoing.